Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Dr. Colin Zhu, and thank you so much for being here with us. This is the Thrive Bites podcast, and welcome to season 5. Here we talk about 3 things: plant-powered living, enhancing emotional resilience, and creating a thriving mindset. And I interview the most passionate guests here, ranging from physicians to coaches to dietitians to entrepreneurs. And my hope is to give you really informative and high-valued conversations. So please follow us here on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and wherever you hear your podcasts. Come on in, and I can't wait to see you inside. Hey guys, welcome to the last episode of the season 5. This is officially episode 150th, and we couldn't have done it without you guys. I am so stoked for this episode. I am joined by Dr. Michael Klaper, and today we are commemorating his 50 years of being in medicine and practicing medicine. So it is a wonderful interview on location, live. He is a vegan educator, a well sought out speaker and clinician, and just an overall good heart and soul. So you don't want to miss this. And thank you again for your support over the years for Thrive Bites podcast. And I'm Dr. Zhu, and let's get to the episode. Guys, welcome to the Thrive Bites podcast. I am super excited to be sitting next to a living legend. So this is Dr. Michael Klaper, and we are here on location in Palm Springs, Palm Desert, and we're at the Plantation Project. So I was able to be fortunate enough to grab him aside and have a very special episode to commemorate your 50 years of practicing medicine. So super stoked about that. So before I start, I want to introduce you to everyone. So Dr. Michael Klaper, we can spend a whole episode just talking about his resume, but he's a gifted clinician. He's a internationally recognized teacher and sought after thought leader and speaker on diet and health. He's the author of Vegan Nutrition, Pure and Simple, no longer in print. I don't think people can get copies, right?
No,
Not really.
No.
Okay. And has produced numerous health videos, webinars, and dozens of articles for both scientific journals and the popular press. He's contributed to making 2 PBS television programs, Food for Thought and the award-winning movie Diet for a New America. He originally graduated from the University of Illinois College of Medicine in 1972, served as director of Institute of Nutrition, educational research from 92 to 2015, and he has practiced acute medicine in New Zealand for 3 years from 2009 through 2018 and served on staff for the True North Health Center. He's a member of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, and he's also serves on the advisory board for the Plantation Project and the International Journal of Disease Reversal and Prevention. So thank you so much for everything you've done, for spending time out, and I can't wait to talk about your career thus far. You have light years ahead. So I'm really excited. So my first question to you is, what does it mean to practice for 50 years in medicine? What does that mean to you, after all this time?
Oh my, words certainly like humbling to have served so many people over these decades. When I think of all the medical adventures that I can run in my head there, the babies delivered, the middle of the night tracheostomies, and the acute care that I gave in many situations. Certainly that's a whole medical epic. But it's also stunning and amazing how quickly it went by. I can't believe it. I was just a young surgical resident, anesthesia resident, just yesterday it seemed. And to all the viewers out there, treasure every day. They go by so fast. My dad's told me how fast it goes by, and when you're a kid, what time crawls. But was he right? And how much medicine has changed. When I came into medicine, I graduated in 1972, there were no computers. There was no DNA analysis, there were no MRI scanners, CT scanners. I watched all these innovations come in. Medicine's so transformed. And then the internet comes in, and the patients are now so much more educated, so much more sophisticated in their questions. So it's been a constant challenge for me to recast myself as all physicians have to deal with now, to keep up with the changes and see how I can serve best. And yet I'm an old-time journeyman clinician. I love touching patients and listening to hearts and feeling abdomens and feeling pulses. And I have such reverence for the body and for the practice of medicine that's only grown as far as the fundamentals that stay true. And it's about serving people. It's about love. It's about serving the higher good. So a lot has changed, a lot hasn't changed, and I'm standing. If you're sitting on the railroad track or highway and a big bus goes by or a big train goes by, phew, what was that? I got a little bit of that feeling about my career as well.
Yeah. Sometimes it can be a blur, and you do your best to be as present and mindful as much as possible. You know, you have these wonderful, I feel like, with the internet and the social media age, we can be more distractful and noisy. Just being present it's already a separate challenge, So for you, going back to the beginning a little bit, what was the moment for you that sparked, for you to say, you know what, let me embark on this journey for medicine? What was that pivotal moment for you?
Oh, I've known I wanted to be a doctor since I was a kid, without question. I spent my first 16 summers on my uncle's dairy farm in northern Wisconsin with my cousins, my brother, and I was the kid who wanted everybody to be okay. If someone fell down, are you all right? And how can we help? If there was an injured animal that needed help, we'd bind up the legs of the sheep that fell and hurt itself. So I was always that kid who wanted everything to be okay. And back on TV, the heroes to me were the doctors, whether it was Marcus Welby or Dr. Kildare or on Gunsmoke, old Doc Adams up in his office there, patching up that bill in there. And my love of biology on those summers on the farm, the natural world was so present. The big thunderstorms would roll through. The animals were everywhere, from the foxes and frogs in the field to the cows and the sheep and the mink that we had on the farm. And the forces of nature. The water always runs downhill, and the winds came from the west, carrying in the thunderstorms. And I just got such a feel for the natural world that I couldn't wait to get into biology class in high school, because the biological sciences made so much sense. So between my desire to patch everybody up and my love of biology, there was no question that I was going to be a physician. My father was a dentist, and I thought I gave it 2 seconds, but I watched how he came home every night so tired, standing out next to that dental chair for 14 hours a day. I knew I didn't want to do that, but I knew I was going to go.
You don't want to do teeth?
I love the rest of the body too much. So it was ordained I was going to be a physician from way back.
Good. Any other physicians in your family lineage?
No, my brother was a biology teacher. My dad was a dentist, and so we had this unlike musicians or mathematicians that seem to run in families, the biological sciences ran in our family, and I became a physician.
Nice. I remember my biology lab with cutting open of the frog and studying anatomy, and at first I was like, oh man, this is sad, but I guess it had to be done. So I mean, it's always heartfelt, to be. I didn't grow up on a farm, and we only had like non-furry pets growing up. So, but I had love, for animals. So, I remember, part of your bio, you talked about the love for these animals. What does that mean, growing up through that time period with those experiences, comparatively to what we're seeing now as a society, as a planet? Like, how does that dishearten you in some way where our current place are at?
Oh my. so much in that question. The natural world was very present on the farm, including death. We would find dead animals, but I chopped the heads off chickens. I remember the old dairy cows that my uncle would call the butcher guy who would come and shoot the cow on the head and butcher them. And I realized that to put meat on the table requires death, requires suffering of animals. And each of the animals, they are beings. We had a big flock of chickens, and I would sit down next to the barn, and they'd come on over, they'd jump up in the lap, they'd love to be snuggled like this, and each one had a personality. Right? Some were very shy, some were very curious, and and the cows as well, those big sad eyes. I realized what magnificent big creatures these are, and they've been given this lot to live their lives out in that body. Yeah. And so my respect and reverence for them as beings really grew, but I wasn't able to reconcile the factor of death involved, so much so that like everybody, we just compartmentalize it, and it's just the way it is. But the most painful auditory memory I have in my store is the sound of a mother cow locked up in a stanchion in the barn. She just had a baby, just gave birth, and her calf is in the veal pen 10 yards down in the barn, and she is bellowing the most heart-rending, soul-tearing moos and cries hour after hour. It would go on day and night, 3 days, 4 days. And I would ask, I was a little kid, I asked my mother, what's happening? Well, she's crying for her baby. Oh, okay. Where's the baby? Oh, in bed, we're taking care of it. Okay. And what did I know? And now I know the inherent cruelty that's involved in every drop of milk and every piece of cheese and container of yogurt. You must take the calf away from its mother. And when milking the cows when I was older, they would be in the stanchion and big tears would be going down their cheeks. And I never understood it. Now I realize they were all new mothers who just had their babies taken away. And there's a sadness in the dairy barn that I still can feel. And so I became aware of it. But then, as I just ignored it and ate meat and burgers and hot dogs like everybody else.
You had to compartmentalize it.
Oh, we have to. Down comes the Iron Curtain, and don't want to think about that. Just the way it is. And boy, that steak tastes good. And then. In the mid-1980s, ran into a book called Diet for New America by John Robbins, and he laid out the reality of factory farming. And as I read those chapters, brick after brick after brick fell into place. Now I realized what I was seeing on the farm, and I was aware. I'm an avid backpacker. But you don't drink out any streams if there might be cattle up there, because there's going to be giardia in the water.
Downstream,
And I realized how much the livestock industry permeates so much of our problems, environmental, certainly in the waters, etc. But I had made because we are paying for it with every time we buy a burger or order a steak, you're paying for that. We are driving it. It's not the livestock industry's fault per se, but we're paying them to do it. And then the whole panoply becomes evident at that point. And it's how can you not be appalled and sad? And you read the numbers as we speak tonight, the hundreds of millions of chickens and pigs and cows in those anonymous sheds out. You drive through the countryside on the hillside, you see those aluminum sheds there, and you know what's happening there, the misery, the suffering that's going on. So we can eat a burger for $2 and get a bucket full of finger-looking good chicken. And so of course there's a sadness, and it kindled a fire in me. I want those animals out of those sheds. I want us to be a plant-eating society for so many reasons, but high up on the list is let's stop, make those animals suffer. And so I'm all for the plant-based burgers and anything that gets those animals out of those sheds. It's time for that to end.
Yeah. And I think recently in California, they just passed a bill to kind of end, cruelty for testing animals as well. Yeah.
Yay, well, that's a step.
Yeah. That's a huge step, and it's just you don't need it. There's nothing to really back that up that we really need it. And I think there's a big disconnect. Because you had that experience of the farm, living off the land, having your uncle and being in Wisconsin. A lot of Americans don't have that experience, and I think when you're missing that experience, you don't see the middle part of it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just quick statistics. 1960 to 2016, there was a 215% increase of chickens consumed. Right, and that produces a lot more feces, a lot more runoffs, and think about the communities that actually live around them. The CAFOs, the concentrated animal feeding organizations or operations, and it's really disheartening. And it's too much. Would you say that experience plus the book you read, can you give us another experience or another light bulb that made you say, because you did eat meat for a little bit of time.
Absolutely.
What other I guess event or book or person made you gravitate and say, like, you know what, I'm just going to go all plant-based or all vegan and not look in the rearview mirror anymore?
Well, it happened in 1981. I was a resident in anesthesiology in Vancouver, and let me take a further step back. During my fourth year of med school at the U of I would spend my Saturday nights, not dating pretty girls, I was in the trauma unit at Big Bad Old Cook County Hospital in Chicago, and I would observe and help out as I could. And Saturday night in the trauma unit at County, you see the worst of what humans do to each other, and the shotgun blast and the knife wounds and the Saturday night specials. I would leave there Sunday morning just shaking with the violence I had seen, and I vowed if I couldn't rid the world of violence, I would at least get it out of my own life. And so I started making a serious exploration of living a life of nonviolence. There's this term, ahimsa, for that. And I read Satchidananda and Mahatma Gandhi and the Indian saints about living a life of nonviolence. It made sense. I'd see the word vegetarian go by. Yes, that would be a good thing too. But I didn't act on it until I was a third-year anesthesia resident in Vancouver, and I'm out for dinner with a fellow resident. And I'm over dinner, I'm pontificating about leading a life of nonviolence, while I'm polishing off a T-bone steak at the local Kagan Cleaver Steakhouse. And John looks at me with great compassion and says, "That's all very nice, Michael, but if you'd like to get rid of the violence in your life, you might want to start with that piece of meat on your plate, because in satisfying your desire for the taste of flesh in your mouth, you are paying for the death of that animal and for the next one in line at the slaughterhouse." Mm-hmm. Well, as soon as he said that, all the old rationales leaped into my mind. Well, the animal's dead already. That's what they raised them for. But before I could get the words out of my mouth, a little voice on my shoulder said, he's right. Mm-hmm. He's right. And when I went out to pay for the dinner, I felt complicit in a crime, because I know those beautiful animals. I know I didn't want to kill a cow. Yeah. And here I am eating its flesh. And I felt complicit in a crime when I paid for the dinner, and it just sat in my stomach there. Mm-hmm. And that was the last piece of red meat I ate for sure. And then a couple weeks later, I'm getting dressed to go to work, and I'm putting on my shoes. And I had been raised in a Jewish household after World War II, and I had seen the pictures of the Holocaust and the lampshades made out of the skins of the Jews. And here I am putting on the skins of these animals that we are slaughtering, and it felt cadaverous, and I just couldn't do it. I went out in the backyard and I dug a hole and put my leather shoes in there, my leather wallet, my leather belt, filled in the hole, apologized to the animals, and the era of hemp wallets and fabric belts began. And I mentioned that to a friend of mine several weeks later, and I told her what happened. She said, "Oh, you've become a vegan." And I'd never even heard the word, but okay, guess I'm vegan. Fair enough, but just felt better.
Yeah.
And so it was a call of the heart and of integrity and being congruent with my higher values.
Awesome. Over these decades, if you could cite like one or two examples of challenges or obstacles as being a medical profession, working in the plant-based field, being a ethical vegan, right? If you can cite a couple of challenges, how were you able to get through that? And on a bird's eye view, how do you keep going, as a medical professional, through these decades? Because I know, in my very short, professional career, it's been hard, it seems daunting. Healthcare system with the pandemic, has raised up the cracks, raised up, everything that's been not, addressed. I can only imagine how much harder it was before, but I would like for you to share, a couple of examples of obstacles and, what really kept you going through those, challenges and ultimately to a beautiful, 5-decade, career.
A lot of it has to do with the maturity to grasp the world as it is. This is not a vegan world. I cannot assume there'll be a golden goal of perfection to live in a vegan world. Eventually it'd be nice to get there, but it isn't. And I have to practice medicine in a non-vegan world. I know very well when a patient has an infection anywhere in the body, and I prescribe antibiotics. Two things: if it's a capsule, it's made of gelatin, and it just doesn't come in any other form. And second, I know very well every one of these drugs has been tested on no end of rabbits and mice and rats who love their life as much as I do, and we've done terrible things to them. And yet I've got a patient in front of me suffering with 104 fever and shaking chills from their pneumonia. They're going to need antibiotics or they're going to die. And so it's a non-vegan modality we're practicing in. But the ultimate goal is ultimately vegan, to save a life. There's no more vegan act than that, to save the life of your patient. But I know there's this cost, this invisible cost in the background, and all I can do, and it's a flimsy rationale, but I have to say, knowing the work I'm doing to make it a more vegan world, to get all those animals out of the factory farms and out of the labs, to say the animals will understand. They have to. Of all the people that are mindlessly eating them and using the animal products, the few times I have to do it, I often in my heart, I just apologize to the animals. I just got to do this. And so far, the animals have been relatively understanding, and the medicines work, and I haven't had too many angry rabbits knocking on the door.
They call you like, "Hey, Dr. K, you're doing a good job. You're doing a good job. Keep going."
Hey, you're selling us out. So you do the best you can to make it a more vegan world. And so I try and make up for it. If I'm eating with my friends, they see I order the vegan meal, the spaghetti with the vegetables instead of the meatballs, and I try and make up for it in other ways by living a vegan life publicly in front of my colleagues. And if I can influence even one of them to make better choices, because it's really the food we're eating more than the medical use of them that really inflicts the greatest harm on the animals. So if I can get my colleagues to stop eating them, I'll do the best I can as far as using them in these various medical modalities.
Yeah. Have you had any, I'm sure you have, in terms of like just naysayers, in terms of the medical colleagues just saying, just don't do it at all. Why go against the grain? Why be so unconventional? I can only imagine, those times just being so hard, it's just like a huge wall that you have to traverse. Did you ever had, just really, I hope you didn't get violent attacks, but just like these verbal, attacks.
Right. Yes, they're out there, and less so now, I must admit. And it has a lot to do with all the good communicators, yourself included, who've been permeating the zeitgeist out there with the whole idea of living gently on the planet, and even in medicine, Dr. Neil Barnard and his Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine trying to, the truth of being kind to animals is so powerful that my colleagues say, well, we've got to experiment on animals because it's the only way we can tell how the drugs work. But even there's a computer chip that is so much more reliable and predictable than the animal's response. The lab on a chip, the liver on a chip, the lung on a chip. There's such a validation that we do not have to keep exploiting these innocent creatures. So knowing that science, inadvertently, I'm sure they're not doing it out of compassion, but science as it marches on is going to eliminate the animals from that process, which is just wonderful. And my colleagues, they were much more cynical in the 80s, much more aggressive, much less so now. They're aware of the toll that our meat-based diet is inflicting, even if they keep eating it themselves. And there's just a greater understanding. A lot of the resistance has fallen away. A lot of the aggressiveness has fallen away for that.
Yeah. And I appreciate, pioneering through those times. So, we work in a less aggressive environment. It's aggressive in different ways, but less aggressive in those ways. It paves the way. So I appreciate that.
But I was known as the nuts and berries doctor.
The nuts and berries.
In our office, yes, right.
So the doctor's lounges were set up the same, right?
Yeah,
and so you just bring like a Tupperware. How did you do it?
Exactly. I bring my lunch, and on the table I always have snacks instead of donuts. I always have some nuts and dried fruits, etc. But they knew the counseling I was giving my patients was vegan counseling, and I would get back at the front office and the front desk when the patients would leave. They would comment to the reception. It got out that I was doing plant-based counseling, but nobody really. They made a few snickery comments about it, but unfortunately, my practice wasn't too aggressive.
That's good.
Hey guys, if you are interested in having a consultation with me and actually see me one-on-one, the ChefDoc Lifestyle Medicine practice has partnered with Plant-Based Telehealth, and we offer lifestyle medicine consultations. So you'll be able to see me one-on-one, and I can go over your health history and seeing what we can do to fill in the gaps. We can talk about your physical health, anything from food to lifestyle to diet to setting up your kitchen to cooking preparation to grocery shopping to your mental health. I think it's important that we build our emotional resilience to talking about your sleep and how to stay hydrated and what are the best medicines if necessary, what are the best supplementations if necessary. And we do all this in a very concise manner, and it's a conversation. I take the time out to listen. I take the time out to really understand you from the ground up and to look at all aspects of your physical, emotional, and mental health. And please, drop me a line, schedule an appointment if you want to see me one-on-one. And I am very, very looking forward to learning more about you. And again, thank you so much for visiting here at TheChefDoc.
So my next question is, if you're looking at your 5 decades, do you feel like the plant-based movement, lifestyle medicine, the direction we're heading right now, do you feel like the needle has been moved, at all? If it's not, what else do we need to do?
The question is, has that needle moved? It has made a quantum leap. That it's becoming so blatantly obvious that Americans are eating themselves to death and drinking themselves to death and smoking themselves to death. These are lifestyle issues, lifestyle diseases. And I was aware of that, but I felt, again, alone, and how do I begin to approach this? And then I saw 10, 15 years ago the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. As soon as I saw that name, I said, yes, that's it. Somebody finally crystallized, yes, that's what's needed. And the floodgates opened when I saw that. I joined immediately and have been just celebrating all the wonderful offerings the organization is making available to help people with their lifestyle issues, and they're even supportive of plant-based nutrition. And absolutely, the fact that ACLM exists and that it's being promulgated as it is extremely reassuring. The needle has certainly moved, because back in the 1970s and 80s when I entered, it was, you find the doctors drinking whiskey and eating burgers themselves. And now it's officially not a good idea to do that. We can do better.
Yeah. I don't know what the experience of so I remember reading the first Surgeon General making the statement about smoking, having the ill effects, and before that actually happened, the first address that smoking was not great, up to 6,000, peer-reviewed, before he actually, uttered those words. And I don't have the experience of, being, I think my grandfather, my dad's dad, he worked in, rural hospitals as an internist, and, they smoked in the wards.
Absolutely.
I don't know what that experience is, like, and now diet has almost replaced that type of inflammatory burden, onto us, and we just have to kind of almost switch.
Yes, exactly. I remember that. I'm old enough. The year is 1964. The Surgeon General was named Luther Terry. And Luther Terry, I remember him on TV, on black and white TV, said, we have now conclusive proof that smoking causes cancer, and we really need to change our habits. And as you mentioned, the 6,000 studies finally brought him to that point of certainty. And as Dr. Michael Greger reminds us, you would think after the first 5,000 studies that they would have been ready to make the pronouncement. But it took them 6,000 studies, our profession. But as you say, it's been stunning. When I grew up and everybody smoked, you get on an airplane, there was the smoking section and the non-smoking section. And so and said that the non-smoking section on the airplane was like the non-chlorine part of the swimming pool. Were you kidding? And at the end of the flight, everybody's coughing. And now nobody smokes. Look at this profound change. Well, of course, that's what we need to do with flesh eating at this point. Yeah. And I've lectured medical students saying that, if you're a group of you sitting around a meeting room and one of you pulls out a pack of Marlboros and lights up, what would you guys all say? Wouldn't you turn and say, man, are you still doing that? Is this day and age still doing that? Yeah. Well, we got to get to the point where someone orders a cheeseburger or a steak. Man, are you still eating that stuff? Don't you know what that does to your body and the planet? And we're going to get there if the world holds together and the seas don't rise too high. We're eventually going to get there. Because the fact that even Tyson chicken, they're all dabbling into plant-based.
Yeah, you were mentioning before the McDonald's, the KFC, they're dabbling in some vegan options.
They see the handwriting on the wall. It's going to fade into a bad dream. The whole factory farming thing, 20 years from now. We used to keep animals by the hundreds of millions and cut their throats. We used to do that. Oh, can't believe that. And that's the day we're all working for. So yes, we're trying to make meat eating as uncool as smoking, and we're slowly getting there.
Yeah. What do you think makes it different? Is it because cigarettes is like one entity, whereas food is just so many different variables? You have style, you have technique of cooking, you have different food. Like, what makes it different that we could do it with smoking,
right,
in terms of a public health, advocacy, but food is a little bit harder. And why is that?
It's a lot harder. One, everybody eats. Not everybody smokes, but everybody eats, and eating, has this deep visceral effect, of course, from flavor and satiety and the abolishing of hunger. but it has this huge symbolic and psychological effect. It's the food Mommy gave us, and Dad always used to make pancakes on Sunday, and my mother used to always make fried chicken from the fryer there. And these are very powerful connections that get laid down, imprinted in us from a young age. And then to be told your mother was wrong and your father was wrong and that was bad, they were hurting you. No one wants to hear that.
Yeah.
And so there's a resistance against that. But I love that taste of that, biting into that cheeseburger and the feel of salty, sweet, sugary. You're not going to take that away from me. And in fact, now one of the greatest threats that the folks who don't think global warming is an issue, or they're afraid to act on it, they're going to come and take away your hamburgers and take your hamburger away from you. And that gets the biggest rise out of people. Why is that so potent and so powerful?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's all sorts of, again, emotional, visceral, and political ramifications to that. So it's a huge boulder that we have to move, but there's no choice to keep on pushing on it. We got to move it to the point where it becomes something we used to do. People say, how can you see a day when there's no more meat eating? Well, lots of things. We used to harpoon whales in the head. We don't do that anymore. We used to buy and sell black people. We don't do that anymore. Factory farming, cutting the throats of animals, hopefully will become one of those things. We don't do that anymore. We saw the horror of it. So, it's a matter of doing that figured ground reversal.
Shifting that paradigm.
Exactly, right. So that's what we're trying to do. And the real frontier is communication now. It's education of the public. We've got enough medical studies, and we know what it does. So now it's a matter of just educating and changing the zeitgeist to make it comfortable for people to evolve their diets instead of being the outlier.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it's not just about us. It affects everyone. It affects everything and everyone, whether you realize it or not. And like you said, it's really about the education to let people know that, hey, we're all connected. It's like this. One of my favorite analogies is a web. It's a spider web. If you push on, one point, it gets reverberated on the other side.
Yes,
and so it's similar. Human beings were connected in that way, and living beings, like you mentioned, are connected in that way. So it's about continuing that process.
Yes.
So looking ahead into the future, what would you like to see more in terms of the medical side, medical industry, and on the reflexive, what would you like to see in terms of the food industry to make changes looking ahead? What more can we do?
Oh my. Someone wiser than me said we have a food industry that knows nothing about health and a health industry that knows nothing about food.
Wendell Berry.
Thank you. And we need to totally reverse those. That we want a health industry that knows very much about food. Because as you know, food. At this point, the standard diet based on meats and dairies and oils and refined foods, etc., damages us in so many ways. It clogs our arteries, raises blood pressure, diabetes, etc. You know the litany well. And a plant-based diet will reverse it. But these diseases shouldn't happen in the first place. You raise a child on a plant-based diet, their arteries will never clog. They're never going to get obese. There's no reason they should develop type 2 diabetes. They should grow up to lean, healthy, active people for 100 years of lifespan. And so to have a food industry that promotes that, to make healthy plant-based eating cheap and available, would save the world on a lot of levels, and the medical industry would certainly follow that along to validate and corroborate this, and employ plant-based healing techniques, and to bring it to just about every clinical situation we encounter. Because pick a disease, when it comes to non-communicable diseases that inflict so much suffering and expense upon our society, the vast majority are food-related. That's where it starts. So much would happen for the better if we make this plant-based transition. So for both the food industry and the medical industry, getting a plant-based society is square one.
I think, we're at a lovely, conference, and, it's almost like we need these major industry leaders to come at the same table to actually talk. Because at the end of the day, it's a business, right? Healthcare is a business. Food industry is a business. It's all about business and the bottom line. And I get that. I understand that, quarterly reports, profits, and things like that. But at the end of the day, it affects, everyone down around the table. So you could still, I am firm believe that you can still be successful, but at the same time, minimize your impact and footprint and reduce the costs.
Oh, absolutely. We've got the pyramid upside down as far as the way the money is flowing. For every heart attack that doesn't happen, for every CEO of a company that doesn't go down with a heart attack, he stays in place, his company stays in place and continues to pay taxes to benefit society. The money that would be saved in coronary bypasses not done, ICU beds not occupied, all the CTs and scans that are done for Band-Aid medicine at this point, that money could be used to reshape our whole society, to send kids to college, put internet in everybody's house, pay out the national debt. There's so much you could do with that money. Ultimately, as noble as our profession is, it's a bit of a rat hole for our resources. If I can tell a little story, there's an analogy that there was a small little village. Everybody knows everybody, and one Sunday morning, the morning stillness is shattered by the sound of breaking glass. Everybody runs out in the central square, and there's a 16-year-old kid, town bully, with a smirk on his face, and standing in front of the bakery, and he clearly had just thrown a big rock through the bakery pane glass window. And the people are angry, the boys are no good, delinquent, and let's punish him. And the head of the Chamber of Commerce steps forward and said, no, the boy's a hero, actually. Because of what he did, the glazier in town who makes pane glass windows, he's going to make some money here, and he'll have money to support our economy here. It was a good thing that he did. So the boy's a hero. And with that, the head of the economics department of the local college steps forward. Doesn't work like that. He said, yes, it's true. The glazier's going to make $300 for his work. But the baker inside there, his son's getting married, and he wanted to give his son a new suit to get married in, and so he had saved up $300 to give to the tailor to make his son a new suit. Well, now he's got to use that money to fix the window. The tailor is out the $300. The boy, the son, is out a new suit. And when it's all said and done and the new glass is put in, what do we got? We're right back where we started from. Nothing has been gained by our little community here. Do not mistake the circulation of money for the creation of wealth. They are two different things here. And war is we spend all this money for what? Back and forth, and we see in Ukraine what really happens. Yeah. It's a black hole to pour your money into military endeavor. Well, in a way, medicine the same way. To have someone who's got all clogged up arteries, and you do a bypass procedure on him, and he rests on the table, and you resuscitate him, and he gets a post-op wound infection, and dehiscence, and pneumonia, and he limps out of the hospital 3 months later after $1 million in bills to do what? To go to the fast food restaurant and eat more burgers and buffalo wings. What are we? It's a black hole. We're pouring our money down here. We really need to see that kind of Band-Aid medicine is a waste here. We need to get people healthy, and that comes from what people are eating and the food that's being produced. It's time for us to support a true healing style of medicine. And of course, all the environmental implications of that. The ice caps are melting, and the soils are eroding, the water's disappearing. All because of our lust for animal flesh. It's driving it all. Well, that can all change with evolution to a plant-based diet, and that's got to be objective one.
Yeah. A recent statistic I read was to support one person on the standard American diet, you would need the equivalent of 3 football fields of land to be able to sustain one person for 1 year.
Correct.
You know,
that same 3 football fields could support 14 people eating a plant-based diet if you grow plants and feed it to the people directly.
It's inefficient way of using the protein or the type of nutrition that you want to provide, just because the demand is so high. You know, you think that this is what we need to make money, you know, or to pay our bills, but it's so inefficient in so many different ways.
And the dishonesty that, that gets infiltrated into our awareness that you must eat meat every day, you've got to eat eggs and milk to be healthy, you know, and the opposite is true.
Yeah.
No need for those.
But just to echo what you're saying about the Band-Aid medicine, you know, I grew up with a traditional Chinese mother, and my entire world was prevention, and addressing things before they arrive. So, and, you know, Dr. Dean Ornish was talking last night, including, you know, yourself on the panel, and I remember this cartoon he keeps referring to about how two janitors are continuously mopping the floor.
Doctors.
Yeah, exactly. 2 doctors mopping the floor, and no one's bothering to look at the faucet and turn it off. Yeah. So, and almost 20% of our gross domestic product is attributed, you know, to healthcare costs. You know, so so we got to do something and do something fast. So
the root for doctor is the same as doctrine is teaching. You know, and it's our highest role is to teach by our example and by our direction to our patients.
Exactly. So, you know, on your 50 years, I've noted, you know, from your bio that you had a couple of great professors that gave you sage advice, and you can correct me if I misparaphrase or misquote it. One of them said, quote, people do not get chronic diseases, they earn them. And then another esteemed, you know, mentor of yours said that 10% of it is science and 90%, you know, common sense. Yeah, exactly. What clicked for you surrounding those quotes, and what would you offer, you know, for the next generation, you know, for, you know, sage advice?
Well, this happened when I was a second-year medical student taking the course that we both hold in high regard of physical diagnosis, where you actually learn how to do a physical exam and make a diagnosis. And I was so despondent and bewildered when a patient had a cough, let's say, and I asked the professor, how do you know what this is? I mean, it could be lung cancer, it could be tuberculosis, it could be a fungal infection, it could be a foreign body, it could be an autoimmune disease, it could be 15 possibilities. How do you tell? How do you get not going well? And he says, look, you know, common things are common. And generally, people don't get diseases, they earn them by what they do. This man smokes 2 packs of cigarettes a day. He's coughing up yellow pus with every rattly cough that he's got. This man's got chronic bronchitis, and you know it's 10% science. You got to know the histology and the pathology, but it's 90% common sense. What do you think this man's got? Yes, he may have a tumor there. You got to be diligent in your searching. But common things are common. People get common diseases from what they do commonly. Human beings do human things. And the fact that we bring most of these diseases on ourselves certainly manifested in spades when I realized what food does to us, and all these etiology unknown diseases. Why do people get obese? What is type 2 diabetes? Why do these arteries clog up? I wish someone had told me it's the food.
It's what's on your plate.
I had to skull that out myself, and once I did, it all comes into focus there. So I'm glad he said that. You know, it's mostly common sense as far as making a diagnosis. And people earn these diseases, very few. And yes, there are congenital diseases, and yes, people get poisonings and things, but by and large, these are lifestyle diseases. Wasn't using the term back then. but it's what people do to each other. The body's not capricious. It doesn't wake up, oh, I think I'll develop lupus today. I think I'll develop bronchitis today. There's a reason disease happens, and the overwhelming reason is how we are treating this magnificent body.
Yeah, it's the daily, minute by minute decisions of putting things in your mouth, choosing not to walk, choosing, poor relationships. So many of these, day-to-day decisions that we don't think about just accumulate over time.
Absolutely, well characterized.
Yeah, exactly. You do a lot of work, currently for the medical educational, curricula, by giving lectures all over the country, and you're an amazing, gifted, lecturer. You haven't heard this man speak yet. What would you say are the highlights or takeaways when students are listening to you and you've traversed so many great challenges and obstacles and light bulbs and, low points, and, what would you, why would you want them to kind of shortcut all this as opposed to, having them go through it themselves, right? Like, instead of, here's a rope to, avoid the muddy areas,
right.
I'm just going to give you this rope, right? Like, why is the question. Why?
Excellent question. And the answer was provided by a German philosopher, Goethe, who said, what you know about, you see. Once you know about something, you start seeing it everywhere. And the purpose of my lectures, called What I Wish I Learned in Medical School About Nutrition, is to create that very phenomenon in the minds of these young medicals. Once they know, here's what a fast food meal does to your bloodstream, here's what it does to your bronchial tubes, here's what it does to your insulin receptors. Once they see that, you can't unring the bell. The bell's been rung. Once you look behind the curtain, you can't pretend you don't know what's behind the curtain. You now know. And so my job is to rip that curtain down and say the vast majority of the diseases you're going to spend the majority of your waking professional hours treating, no matter what specialty you go into, internal medicine, general surgery, pediatric, dermatology, GI, you're all going to be dealing with nutrition-based diseases from what your patients are eating. Know that, and know that a plant-based diet will reverse these diseases. The concept of disease reversal. I wish someone had told me that type 2 diabetes is a reversible disease. I wish somebody had told me that hypertension is a reversible disease. I spent the first 10, 15 years of my medical career chasing numbers, chasing high blood pressure, chasing high blood sugar, chasing these people's weight, and didn't know what to tell them. Now I know what to tell them. Go to a plant-based diet and these numbers get better. And so this is such a powerful tool. And you know well, especially when you're a young medical student, first, second, third year, you want those powerful medical tools in your hand. You want to hear that pneumonia clear in the lungs. You want to see that ankle edema go down as the heart failure clears. You want us to have that healing effect right visible for you. Well, guess what? The most powerful healing effects are produced by having your patients adopt a plant-based diet. Within days of running a whole food, plant-based food stream through the body, the obesity begins to melt away, the arteries relax and open up, the high blood pressure comes down, the joints stop hurting so much, the asthmatic lungs stop wheezing so much, the migraine headaches start improving, the inflamed intestinal tract settles down, and they turn into normal, healthy people in front of your eyes. I tell the students, what greater gift could you want for your patients? Why are you going into medicine? I got a slide that says, do you want to heal these patients or don't you? If you really do, then stop nibbling around the edges with more beta blockers and metformin. It's the food you're eating. Correct that and everything gets better. And so I want to ring that bell loud and clear. And again, kudos to people like you and the media folks. In every first, second, third year med school class now, there's 20 or 30 students. They've seen films like Forks Over Knives. They've seen What the Health. They've seen Cowspiracy. They've heard podcasts talking about this. So they're primed. The light's already on. And so to have an experienced clinician come in and say, yes, you can reverse these diseases with a plant-based diet, oh boy, that's a tool they want. And by the way, you'll get healthier too if you adopt it. And so why do I do it? Is to create a new generation of nutritionally aware young physicians who know the power of plant-based nutrition to the point where the public says, of course my doctor asks me what I'm eating. Every visit we talk about food and how we can do better here. When I hear those words coming out of the lips of patients and doctors, I can hang on my stethoscope. I can call it a career at that point. Got a little way to go before that, but we'll get there. So why do I do it? It's to heal the world, to heal our profession, to heal our patients, to heal the animals, to heal the world.
Awesome. I have a couple of rapid fire.
Sure.
Favorite vegetable?
Oh, broccoli.
Broccoli.
I can eat it every day.
What's your favorite preparation of broccoli?
Oh, I steam it and just either balsamic vinegar on it or lemon juice on broccoli. It really gets me salivating. I just love broccoli. Though kale, when it's well done, you cut it up, balsamic, it tastes almost meaty in your mouth, the texture, and it's very satisfying to chew kale. So kale and broccoli, I'm a big fan, and I love raw carrots.
Awesome. If you took a time machine, a DeLorean, you went back 50 years to your, graduate 1972, version of yourself, what would you say to young Dr. Klaper?
Oh my!
Knowing what you know now.
Knowing what I know now. Learn everything you can about nutrition, about the effect of food on the body, because that's going to come in handy. That's about every patient you see is going to have a food-related issue there. So learn about the effects of food on the human body.
Nice. And last question is, any regrets?
Any regrets? At this point...
What would you have done anything differently, if anything?
Anything differently. Everything unfolded as it should have. Even the anesthesia training, even though I didn't become an anesthesiologist, it served me so well in my clinical years. Every day waking up as a physician has been an honor and a delight, and I wouldn't change a thing, I can say that. I should have gotten out of a couple romantic relationships earlier, but as far as medicine goes, wouldn't change a thing.
It led you to, your sweetheart, right?
Exactly. Led me to my true love. Absolutely. Yeah.
Dr. Klaper.
Oh,
thank you so much.
You give me hope. This is wonderful. You did something good here.
Thank you so much.
Guys, when you get it edited, I'll put it out on my social media.
I will. Guys, thank you so much for watching another episode on this. Actually, we're commemorating, 50 years. This is actually the 100th and 50th episode, and so very, very special gratitude and thanks to you, Dr. K, and, to another 50 more.
Another 50 more. From your lips to God's ears. Let's make it a more vegan world.
Yeah. Thank you so much. All right. Hey, guys, thank you so much for watching that episode. We hope that you enjoyed it. If you like this, please follow, and subscribe. And please follow us for the latest updates for this season 5. And if you feel that this was a benefit for someone else, please let them know. And please follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, and YouTube. And thank you so much again. And we will see you on the next one.